So today we are reviewing not one, not two, but three figures, all three of which are by Todd McFarlane and are a part of his DC Multiverse line of figures. The figure to the far left is Batman Dark Detective from the Future State series of comic books, in which Gotham City has been overtaken by an organization known as the Magistrate, which has outlawed masked vigilantes and has seemingly killed Batman aka Bruce Wayne. But appearances are deceiving. Batman aka Bruce Wayne wasn't actually killed by the Magistrate, but only allowed them to believe so that he could continue functioning as Batman stealthily and without having to worry about them continually hunting him down. The figure in the middle is Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, which is from the comic book series Batman R.I.P. In this series, an organization known as Black Glove seeks to completely destroy Batman, and one of the ways in which it attempts to do so is by having one of its members, Dr. Simon Hurt, hypnotize Batman using the phrase Zur-En-Arrh. After hypnotizing Batman with this phrase, Batman awakes among the homeless in the middle of the streets of Gotham, and via a series of events, he decides to stitch this new Batsuit together using rags that he finds in the trash. The figure to the far right is another Batman from the Future State series of comic books. This Batman is Timothy Jace Fox, the son of Lucius Fox, and in the Future State series of comic books, he functions as the proper Batman, because as you can see, his suit is more in line with the traditional depiction of Batman, whereas Bruce Wayne himself wears a very low-tech get-up, which isn't even a proper Batsuit, and he does this because in the Future State series of comic books, he's actually lost his wealth, and he therefore can't afford the technology that he used to use as Batman, so he uses a makeshift getup, and as you can see, a very primitive grappling hook. So the first thing that we're going to do is check out the accessories of these figures, starting with the figure on the far left, Batman Dark Detective. As you can see, he comes with this relatively primitive grappling hook, compared to what he normally uses. The grappling hook that he normally uses is typically attached to a gun-like device, or should I say is typically fired from a gun-like device. So in addition to this grappling hook, he comes with a stand that's pretty typical for DC Multiverse figures, and he comes with this really cool collectible card. As you can see, it says Batman Dark Detective at the bottom, DC Future State, and in the main body of the card, or should I say the main body of the front of the card, this is the front of the card, we have a photo of the figure, which is really neat. The figure is being illuminated by some pretty cool lighting, and it has glowing eyes. Now the actual figure doesn't have glowing eyes, unfortunately, but it would be really cool if it did, but that would obviously make it much more expensive than $19.99, which is what I paid for it. And on the back we have a bio of Batman aka Bruce Wayne. The first half is comprised of text that pretty much seems to be identical to the cards that come with any figure of Batman aka Bruce Wayne by DC Multiverse, but the second half is comprised of text that's unique to this figure. So if you want to read it, just pause the video. Now moving to the second figure, the figure in the middle, Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. This figure comes with two weapons, as you can see, two melee weapons. The weapon in its right hand, which is on your left, is a baseball bat, at the end of which is embedded what appears to be nails or other small pieces of metal. And in his left hand is a knife. So this Batman is equipped with some pretty brutal weapons that Batman wouldn't typically use, but you know, this particular Batman, aka Bruce Wayne, is under the hypnotic suggestions of Dr. Simon Hurt, a member of an antagonistic / malicious group that wants to take out Batman. I haven't read the story Batman R.I.P., from which the iteration of Batman Bruce Wayne on which this figure is based comes, but I will definitely read it after familiarizing myself with this figure because it sounds very intriguing. So in addition to the weapons, he comes with a stand that's, as already stated, typical for DC Multiverse figures. And he comes with this pretty cool collectible card It has this really cool photo of the figure under very nice lighting with rain effects. I'm guessing the rain effects were produced using some sort of photo editing software. And he's standing on this really cool diorama that doesn't come with the figure, and that I don't think is for sale. It's just something that the photographers came up with for this photo. But it's a pretty nice setup. And at the bottom of the card we have text that reads Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, and beneath that it says Batman R.I.P, which is the name of the comic book series from which this particular Batman comes. And on the back we have text describing the sort of history of Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. And as I indicated earlier, the first half of the text is pretty much identical to text that comes on the cards of that accompany every figure of Batman by DC Multiverse. Bruce Wayne Batman, that is. So keep that in mind. It is pretty much word for word the first half, but then the second half is comprised of text that's unique to this iteration of Batman. So pause the video if you'd like to read it. Very cool stuff. And moving to the third figure, Batman of the Future State. This is the next Batman. So this Batman exists in the Future State comic book series alongside this one over here, but this Batman is not Bruce Wayne. This is someone else. This is the son of Lucius Fox, Timothy Jace Fox. And as you can see, he has on a suit that is pretty much in line with the traditional bat suit. And that's because he has access to funds that enable him to function as a traditionally, clothed or traditionally suited Batman, which is pretty neat. And beneath him is a stand, which comes with all DC Multiverse figures, and 2 additional hands and a batarang. The 2 additional hands, let me give you guys a close look at them. The 2 additional hands, they are pretty much slightly open palm, and they have the fingers positioned in such a way that implies that they're meant to hold guns or gun-like devices. Now, I don't think that this particular Batman uses guns, so I'm guessing this is just meant for him to hold gun-like devices, such as a traditional grappling hook. So that's pretty neat. And you can also put this huge batarang into the hands like this. So yeah, pretty cool extra set of hands. And now let's take a look at the collectible card that comes with this figure. You get a really nice image of this Batman with glowing eyes, just like the card that comes with Batman Dark Detective. But obviously he doesn't have glowing eyes, the figure that is, because that would make the figure too expensive. This was also $19.99. And on the bottom it says Batman DC Future State. And on the back you get a biography of Timothy Jace Fox, who is this particular Batman. So pause the video if you would like to read that. So now we're going to measure the heights of these figures, starting with that of the figure to the far left, Batman Dark Detective, aka Bruce Wayne. Now Bruce Wayne is 6'2", which is 74 inches. 74 inches scaled down to 1/10 scale is 7 inches and 6.7/16 of an inch. So let's see how this figure measures up. This figure is, I'm going to say, 7 2/16 of an inch. So a little shorter than it should be. It's shorter by a little more than 5/16 of an inch. But it's in the general area, so I'm going to say that it's in scale. I'm going to say it's in scale, roughly speaking. As soon as I can get him to stand, I can move on to the next one. Okay. Now this is also Batman, aka Bruce Wayne Batman. So let's see how tall he is. He should also be 7 6.7/16 of an inch, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to be the case. He is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh wow, he's actually pretty close. Now holding this straight, he's actually pretty close to his ideal. Oh, crap. try that again. How tall is this figure? Actually, I was wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's about 7 5/16 of an inch, so a little shorter than he should be, but definitely closer than this one. So I'm going to show you that it's also in scale, roughly speaking. And what about this one? This is Timothy J. Fox. This is not Bruce Wayne. Timothy J. Fox is 6 feet flat, 72 inches. So this figure should be 7.2 inches in height. 7.2 inches, the exact figure I don't know, but that's definitely less than 7 1/4 of an inch and more than, well, 7 inches. So let's see. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Okay, here we go. He is 7 I'm gonna say 1/16 of an inch. So I would imagine he should be a little taller than that. Jesus Christ, come on. I would imagine he should be more than that. More than 7 1/4, but less, sorry, more than 7 1/16, but less than 7 1/4 is what this figure here should be in height, but it hasn't met that requirement, or should I say that figure, but close enough, so I'm going to say it's in scale. So now we're going to check out the articulation of these figures, starting with Batman Dark Detective. So let's move these two to the back, and let's bring him to the center, alter the focus, there we go. So let's start off with the head, obviously. We have 360 degrees of rotation, as you can see. He can tilt his head up by that much. So not that much, but it is a noticeable range. And you can tilt his head down by that much, by a significantly larger range than he can upwards. So that's pretty good. Now let's take a look at the arms at the shoulders. Now there are these pads that go over the shoulder and upper arm, so that would give you the impression that he can't really rotate his arms at the shoulders, but he actually can, because this piece is not connected to the shoulder part. It's loose, as you can see. So you can rotate his arms 360 degrees. Let me bring the light source closer. So there we go. We have 360 degrees of rotation. Now the downside is that you can't lift his arms up any more than this, so you can't make his arms perfectly parallel to the surface on which he's standing. But hey, what can you do? He has a bicep swivel, as you can see here, but this does get in the way, so it's really hard to use the bicep swivel. So you get some resistance. You could, I guess, sort of, no, you can't. You can't peel this back a bit on this end. So the bicep swivel is, it's compromised. I was able to use it once, but yeah, for all intents and purposes, I'm going to say that you can't really use the bicep swivel on this because this shoulder pad gets in the way. So I guess, yeah, that's definitely a strike against the figure, unfortunately. Now let's take a look at the elbows. He has double joints, as you can see, but as you can also see, that paint job is pretty strange. It looks like he has compound fractures on both elbows. It looks like the bone is protruding through the skin, or that there's no skin over the bone. It looks kind of creepy, to be honest with you. But you can fix that with some paint on your own. So let's take a look at his hands at the wrists. Let's see if I can get my hand off. Give me a second. Okay, I can't really get his hands off. There's quite a bit of resistance. I'm pretty sure if I pull hard enough, but I get the impression that you're not supposed to, so I wanted to pull them off in order to orient the hands on the pegs the correct way, so that I could bend his hands along the axis of the peg, but can't do that, so I'm not even sure which way the peg is oriented. I think it's this way. There we go. So as you can see, this is the default position. You can bend up that much, bend that much. And I would love to reorient the hand on the peg, but I'm getting a bit of resistance when I try and pull the hand off, but yeah, that's the range that you get. Let's check out this side. So that's the default position. Okay, so which way is it on the peg? I can't tell because I can't bend it anyway. Let me just try and pull this off then. Try a little harder. Alright, there we go. Okay, we have a problem. I've wound up breaking the peg off, as you can see. So now I gotta squeeze that back in, unfortunately. But at least I know which way it's oriented. Okay, I got the hand back on the peg. But now at least I know that the axis of the peg is along this direction, so I should be able to bend his hand, but I know it's really stiff. I can't bend it. So, yeah, maybe mine is just of poor quality. I don't know if all units are like this, but I'm having issues with the wrist of his left hand, so I'm not going to even bother. I don't want to damage anything. So just take from that what you will. Now he doesn't appear to have... Okay, I was wrong. He does have a diaphragm joint. As you can see, you can bend forward by a noticeable degree. Right, at the diaphragm. But you can't really bend backwards too much, but forward you could do. What about to the sides? A bit, not too much, but there is some range there, as you can see. Now what about the waist? Can you bend forward at the waist? A bit. Not much backwards, but a bit forward. To the sides. Not much. So the articulation at the diaphragm and the waist is pretty limited in terms of bending. What about rotating? Can I rotate at the diaphragm? You can rotate a bit, as you can see. You can do that. But I wouldn't recommend it. There's quite a bit of resistance. At the waist, you can rotate 360 degrees. Pretty neat. Let's take a look at the legs at the hips. You want to bend his legs forward. You can do it by this much, close to 90 degrees, but the legs do protrude outwards. So there's that. What about backwards? Too much resistance by the jacket. Let me see if I lift the jacket up. I can go by this much, so not too much. You can really push it, but you're not supposed to. There's quite a bit of resistance. You can tell it's just not meant to be pushed past this point. Now we have thigh swivel, which is pretty rare for Todd McFarlane DC Multiverse figures. So pretty nice to have it, I guess, for those of you who like it. I don't really like using it too much because it breaks up the sculpt. It looks weird. So there's that. That's how I feel about thigh swivel in general. I usually try not to use it. So it's great for characters whose thighs are a uniform color and pattern, so you don't really notice any changes when you rotate the leg along the thigh swivel. But for something like this, as soon as you turn the lower thigh relative to the upper thigh, you can see that the sculpt is broken and it just looks really weird and unnatural. So that's that. Let's take a look at the knees. Double jointed knees. Standard for Todd McFarlane figures. I don't think I've come across one that doesn't have double jointed knees. If I have, it's pretty much just one or two at most, I would guess, but I can't recall coming across any without this feature. Let's take a look at the ankles. So, sorry about that noise. It's the table shaking. Anyway, this is the default position of the ankles, I would say. So if you want to go up, you get that much range, that much range. Go down, you get that much range. So pretty good amount of range. You have toe swivel as well. Very nice. You can't rotate to the sides, but you can rotate the feet at the ankles 360 degrees. So there's that. So you get some pretty good articulation at the ankle. So overall, considering that he has this highly restrictive jacket on, I'm going to say that the articulation is pretty good when you consider that. Unfortunately, the bicep swivel is hindered because there's too much resistance by the shoulder pad. And of course the articulation at the diaphragm and the waist is hindered when bending him backwards. And what else is the issue? The peg of the wrist of the left arm on mine, it seems to be stiff. I can't really bend it in any direction. But overall, I'm still satisfied with it, considering, you know, that he has this jacket on. So that's it for the articulation of Batman Dark Detective. So here is Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. There he is. Let's start off with the head. 360 degrees. This is the default position. This is when you bend his head to the sides. So pretty good. Default position. Upwards you get quite a bit of range, that's really good. Downwards you get quite a bit of range, that's also really good. Now let's check out the arms and the shoulders. 360 degrees of rotation. 360 degrees of rotation. You can bend them upwards by this much. So not perfectly parallel to the sides of his waist, or in other words, not perfectly perpendicular to the surface on which he's standing, but that's pretty good. I didn't demonstrate that for this. Yeah, this is what you get with this guy. Pretty good. Put him back. Okay. So, let's check out the biceps. Sorry about that noise, that's an airplane passing overhead. Yeah, so if you want to bend his arms forward, you get this much range. You can't bend his arms past this point and have him cross his arms. You can do this. It's pretty good. You get that much range. So yeah, to the bicep swivels, 360 degrees of rotation. 360 degrees of rotation. You have double jointed elbows, standard fare for Todd McFarlane at this point in time. Now let's check out the wrists. 360 degrees of rotation, obviously. Let's see, which way do they bend? So this is, oh, sorry, let me get that in the right direction. Yeah, so right orientation, I should say. So that's the wrist. Now if I want to bend inward, wait a minute, the peg is not on. It's not oriented correctly. Give me a second. Okay, there we go. So this is the default position of the hand. And when I want to bend inward, I get that much range. Outward, I get that much range. So quite a bit of range in both directions. Pretty good. On this side, this is the default position. Inward, you get that much range. Outward, that much range. So quite a bit of range with the hands at the wrist joints. Very good. He has an obvious diaphragm joint. Backwards, that much. Forward, that much. Backwards, forward. So pretty good range backwards, not so much forward. To the sides, you get quite a bit of range. So a really good diaphragm joint overall, I would say. I mean, it can't go forward too much, but overall, it's quite flexible. Let's take a look at the... Actually, can I rotate along the diaphragm joint? Yes, I can. 360 degrees. So going to the waist... 360 degrees at the waist. Can you bend at the waist? Yeah, you can. Not too much. Sorry. Backwards that much. Try and pay attention to the waist and not the diaphragm. It's hard to move the waist without moving the diaphragm, but as you can see, you can move at the waist a bit. Not too much though, but the range, the flexibility is there. Let's take a look at the legs at the hips. So you can bend his legs forward by this much. The legs do protrude to the sides a bit, unfortunately. Backwards, you can do so by that much. Pretty good. This middle section, or should I say this section that corresponds to, you know, what you would call his underwear, I guess. This section here, his underwear is made out of a soft plastic, but not the super soft diaper plastic on some other figures, but it is flexible, so he can bend his legs backwards by a pretty decent degree, I'd say. So now let's take a look at the thighs. In terms of rotating, we get that much range, pretty good. So we have some sort of thigh swivel. This is better than the other type of thigh swivel because it looks natural. You know, you're not splitting up the thigh into two sections, so you're not breaking up the sculpt. So this is much better. Let's take a look at the knees. So there's that, double jointed knees, standard fare for Todd McFarlane. Let's take a look at the ankles, default position, up by that much. This one has loose ankles, I'm not going to lie. I don't know if every unit is like this, but this unit is. So once again, standard position, up, standard position, up. This is down, so pretty good range in both directions, and he has toe articulation as well. Let's see, going, can we go to the sides a bit? As you can see, there's a bit of range to the sides. You can obviously rotate 360 degrees. So, pretty good. So here is the next Batman, Timothy J. Fox. So we have here 360 degrees. No, I'm not going to even bother. 360 degrees of rotation. To the sides, you get that much range. Pretty good range. Going up, you get that much range. So let's say that's the default. That's the range that you're getting, which is pretty good. Down, you get that much range. So overall, really good head articulation. He has pads over his shoulders, so this is as far up as you can bend his arms, unfortunately. Obviously, if you have the pits facing his torso, you can bend his arms up, or should I say inwards, quite a bit. They're almost perfectly perpendicular to the surface on which he's standing. Pretty good. Better than the Batman Dark Detective figure. I would say just as good as the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh figure, maybe even a little better. So yeah, there's that. 360 degrees of rotation. Can you get his arms to cross? Nope. You can't even get his arms to touch as much as you can with the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. I mean, if I bring him back over, I feel like you get a little more range. You see his hands on the Batman Zur-En-Arrh figure. The hands extend over one another by a larger degree. This one, they don't do so to an equal degree, but close enough. But there is a bit less range. So let's see. Double jointed elbows, standard fare for Todd McFarlane. Nothing surprising there. Let's take a look at the wrists. Is that a chip in the paint? I don't know. I'll fix it later. So that's the default position. Inward that much, outward that much. But you do get a bit of resistance by this part of the gauntlet. So keep that in mind. This is the other hand. Okay, I don't think this is oriented on the peg correctly. Give me a second. Okay, here we go. So this is the default position. Wait a minute. Inward that much, outward that much, and that's what you get. Pretty decent. You have an obvious diaphragm joint. Let's see. Bend forward that much, bend backward that much, forward, backward. Not too much range. Definitely worse than what you get on the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh figure. Pretty stiff. Can you bend to the sides? Not too much either, but there is some range. You can rotate him along the diaphragm 360 degrees, so that's pretty good. At the waist, let's see. Backwards, you get a noticeable degree, but not too much, but you can see it move. Forward, not too much. To the sides, a noticeable degree in each direction. So, decent, not great, I've seen better, but yeah. The legs at the waists, you can bend forward by this much, so it doesn't even hit 90 degrees. And the legs do protrude to the sides. Backwards, yeah, you can't go far back because it's just too much plastic. I wouldn't say that the issue is the buttocks is not made out of a super hard plastic. It's just the size of the upper portion, the very upper portion of the leg at the hip. It's just so large, it just can't really move much inside of the joint in order to provide you any range going backwards. So there's that. Let's take a look. Oh, I didn't demonstrate this position for the other two. I'm so sorry. So there's that. I should have done it for these two. I forgot about that. There's that. So pretty good on Batman Zur-En-Arrh. Definitely noticeably better. Take from this what you're willing. See if I can position this a little more correctly. Yeah. You get more range on the Batman Zur-En-Arrh, that's obvious. I highly doubt you're going to get much on this guy. Okay, I was wrong. This is definitely more than I expected. Not as good as Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, but pretty good. So now let's check out the knees. Double jointed, but you don't get as much range as you get on most other Todd McFarlane's with double jointed knees. It's really bizarre. I mean, as you can see, this is what you typically get from a Todd McFarlane figure with double jointed knees, but not so much with this Batman. It's the shape that they chose for the knee joint. It just doesn't permit as much flexibility. So take from that what you will. Let's check out the feet. The ankles, default position, upwards by that much. So you don't get that much range, unfortunately. It's pretty limited, unfortunately. Let's see, going downwards, you get that much. So pretty decent downward, but I've seen better. And obviously you have toe articulation. You can rotate the feet 360 degrees. So yeah, that's that for the articulation of the next Batman of future states, Timothy Jace Fox. So now we are comparing the three figures that we have been reviewing thus far to other figures in the DC Multiverse line by Todd McFarlane. We have started off with the Bat family, as you can see. We have Rebirth Robin, aka Damian Wayne. We have Three Jokers Batman. We have Three Jokers Batgirl, and we have Rebirth Nightwing. So this is how they stack up in terms of size to the three figures in the center. So now let's swap them out. This is Three Jokers Red Hood. As you can see, this is how he stacks up. And we're going to bring in, I believe, the new 52 Red Hood. Where is he? So this is the new 52 Red Hood. Right here. They look to be different sizes, but that's the lens distortion. That's what I kind of hate about using this wide angle lens. I mean, if I put them in the center, you can see, yeah, the one on the left is a little taller because it has a bigger helmet, but the overall size is similar. But the difference is exaggerated when you put them over here. near the edge of the frame. The size differential is made to be much larger than it actually is, so just keep that in mind. Unfortunately, here is an unmasked Red Hood. Wait a minute, I dropped his crowbar. I think it looks kind of funny, the head sculpt. It reminds me of Charlie Sheen. You know, that's what it looks like. It looks like Charlie Sheen. Interesting choice, I guess. If you pair him up with his mask counterpart, this is what he looks like. And this is him next to the mask counterpart from the Three Jokers series. Yeah, it seems like the Three Jokers version is... maybe it's just my eyes. He just seems a bit smaller. I guess it's the jacket. Maybe the jacket just isn't as large. Maybe it's just me, but he just seems a bit smaller. The head is definitely smaller, though. That's indisputable. But hey, yeah, so this is how these guys measure up compared to the figures that we've been reviewing in this video thus far. You know, this is how they stack up. So let's take these guys out. Let's swap them. Let's see. Let's bring in Rebirth Lobo. So here is Ultraman, recently released. So yeah, here's Infinite Frontiers Robin. Right here. His right foot. There we go. There he is. So that's how these guys stack up. Let me pull them out. By the way, this comes off. This isn't stuck on the figure. I just have it on there. This is an accessory that comes with Ultraman. Yeah, you can just put it on like that and pretend that he's being mind controlled by Starro. This is a minion of Starro, I guess. This little octopus three-eyed creature. So yeah, let's swap these guys out. Let's bring in, let's see, Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis. This is how he stacks up to these guys. Let's bring in a villain of Batman Beyond. This is Soundwave, I believe his name is. It's been a while since I watched the series. It's a really good series from what I remember. Yeah, I believe his name is Soundwave. Right, so there he is. That is Soundwave. Pretty neat. Can I fit someone else in the frame? I guess I can fit in New 52 Nightwing, which is pretty much the same sculpt as the last one. Yeah, I can barely fit him in the frame. Too wide. Should I say the frame isn't wide enough? So yeah, that's how these guys stack up. Let me remove them. Okay, there we go. So there's the Flash. So this is the Flash that comes in a single pack. Comes with a different head sculpt. And now here is Red Death, aka Bruce Wayne. I believe he's from Earth -52 or -22, one of those two. Yeah, this is an alternate Bruce Wayne who has the ability to run fast because he has the powers of the Speed Force. He is a Flash in his universe, which is pretty neat. So now let's bring in Rebirth Superman. Let me stand him up straight. So there's Rebirth Superman right there. Let's bring in Superboy-Prime. Can I fit him over here? I guess over here is better. So yeah, the Superboy-Prime. I don't think I can fit anyone else into the frame. Can I? Let's try Solar Superman. Nah, I can't fit anyone else in the frame. I mean, I can barely fit him over here. Shit. Oh, you gotta hate that. Alright, so there we go. Barely fit him here on the side. Yeah, that's how these guys stack up. Yeah, they're about the same height. Might appear slightly The heights might appear slightly different on camera, but they're about the same height going across. Well, this one is definitely shorter, but these four, same height. These two a little shorter over here. Yeah, unfortunately, got the lens distortion. So let me take these guys out. Let's bring in Pattinson. Robert Pattinson Batman. Pretty neat. I'd bring in his corresponding characters, corresponding supporting characters, Catwoman, a Penguin, the Riddler, but they're put away in a box and I'm not digging them out. Yeah. So there he is, Robert Pattinson Batman. Here is Hazmat Batman. Very neat. So that's how these guys stack up. Okay, let me pull them out. And so now let's bring in Martian Manhunter. This is Rebirth Martian Manhunter. I've had him for a few days. I actually didn't originally intend to get him, but I wound up changing my mind because he's so cheap, $19.99, and he looks fantastic. I find that a lot of McFarlane figures tend to look better in person than they do in the promotional images. The promotional images use flat, bright lighting, which doesn't make the figures look good. But when you get the figures and you subject them to natural lighting or the type of lighting that you'll use for videography or photography, they look fantastic. And that's the case with this one. It looks really good. I also have General Zod. This is Rebirth General Zod. He looks pretty darn good as well. Pretty good figure. So yeah, that's how these guys stack up. That's how they stack up to each other. As you can see. Pretty neat. Martian Manhunter, a lot of people are complaining that he's too short. But hey, it is what it is. Still a good looking figure. And if you want to build a 7-inch scale Justice League, you're going to need him. So hopefully McFarlane eventually releases a 7-inch scale comic book Wonder Woman and a 7-inch scale comic book Cyborg. And then we can have a complete Justice League, because we already have Green Lantern and Green Lantern. Take your pick. Which one do you want to be on your Justice League? You have John Stewart, and you have Hal Jordan. Pretty cool. I believe the only way to get Hal Jordan as of now is to get the 2-pack with him and Dawnbreaker Batman, which is a version of Batman from another universe in which he is a Green Lantern and evil. So yeah, it's the only way to get Hal Jordan. You got to get that Dawnbreaker figure with him in the 2-pack. So that's how these guys scale up. As you can see, they measure up to each other. Pretty neat. Who else can I bring in? And to finish things off, I will bring in, actually not to finish things off, I have a few more after these. We have Endless Winter Aquaman. So there he is. And we have Rebirth Batman, which, as explained in the previous video in which I reviewed him and 2 other figures, he is shorter than most other Batman figures, and overall just smaller in terms of his proportions. So just keep that in mind. I mean, just look at his head. His head is quite small compared to, this Batman figure. As you can see, a very small head on this Batman figure. It's just small in general. So yeah, that's that for these two. So we go Flashpoint Batman. He's actually pretty small. In fact, let me see something here. Is he about the same size as... He's about the same size, in terms of height anyway, as the Rebirth Batman, but he does have a bigger head and slightly bigger proportions. Wait a minute. Holy moly, do these guys have the same sculpt, the same body sculpt? It looks pretty similar, but the proportions seem a bit different. The patterning on the chest looks pretty similar. Yeah, but it is the angle of the patterning is different, so I'm not going to say they're the same sculpt, but they are somewhat similar, but they're not the same sculpt. They are different. But yeah, they're the same height, but Bruce Wayne has a smaller head than Thomas Wayne, his father. Don't know what that's about, but yeah, definitely the same height. You compare these two together, it's pretty neat. Holy shoot. Oh crap, domino effect. This is the Unmasked Flashpoint Batman. There he is. I may not be able to tell, but he's about the same height as this Batman figure here. They're the same height. And yeah, this is Batman again. Let me just get him out of the frame. This is getting kind of annoying. I'm constantly falling over. Here we go, Flashpoint Batman. So that's how these guys stack up. So let me take them out. And now to finish things off, let's bring in the three Jokers from the Three Jokers line. Or Three Jokers wave, I should say. That's the Clown. This is the Criminal. And this is the Comedian. So there we go. I'm going to say they're all pretty much the same height, roughly speaking. I mean, he's obviously the tallest, but going around here, they're about the same height. Are these two the same? They're close. Yeah, I measured them earlier in the video. Yeah, the Detective Batman, Dark Detective, is a bit taller. But he's the tallest of all of them. So yeah, that's how these guys stack up. So they all scale well together. And that's that for this review. Thank you for watching. Be sure to leave some comments below, to thumb this video up, and to hit the subscribe button. Peace out.